meet again with the global family and describe to them some of the developments in EEG technology and findings related to Maharishi's Vedic technologies of consciousness. As we indicated before, technologies are getting to be much more compactified and refined, and in this little box is the entire EEG system, which we're going to demonstrate again today in a number of different cases. As part of this demonstration, it's the idea given to us by Gurdev of seeing. Pasha, pasha, pasha. We want to be able to see. We want the narration of the unified field. We want the narration of the constitution of the universe. But we'd also like to see, concretely see the value of that in individual physiology and awareness. And that's what we're going to do in the next few minutes of this presentation, is describe to you the mechanics of brain functioning in EEG and show you some clips that we've recorded of practice of transcendental meditation and then listening to Vedic sounds. So if we can go first to the slide we have, we can see the idea of this theme is Pasha, Pasha, Pasha. We're able to now see more with this new technology, more of what has always been there, what has always been available to everybody. The ability to visualize totality. To experiencing total knowledge, we develop total brain functioning, visualizing totality, Brahm. And in addition, taking it further in the brain to begin to understand the eightfold dynamics of consciousness and brain physiology, built on the beautiful discovery and remarkable work of His Majesty Maharaja Nadaramji. What we're going to do is talk about this new EEG system and what it offers to us, and concretely visualize this totality mechanics of the constitution of the universe. In particular, there will be 3 sections, all of them dealing with this concept of looping, that the brain is just a giant mechanism of looping impulses of intelligence and consciousness. First, we'll talk about the loops in terms of local and global coherence. Then we'll have a separate section on the different dynamics of loops in terms of frequencies and rate of rotation and circularization. This we'll talk about in terms of the relationship between object referral and self-referral. And then finally, we'll talk about how alpha, a particular frequency in the EEG spectrum, how alpha frequencies give us an insight into the structure of Atma in human physiology, the flow of totality in human awareness. The human mind is a vast ocean of possibilities. Most people are restricted to the surface level, never appreciating the depth. Most people don't appreciate that the mind is a full range of all possibilities. And from Atma, the source of thought, this constitution of the universe, flow every single thought and desire. And we know that most people's attention are always outward into what we refer to as object referral. In other words, our life is mainly in reference to objects and pieces or parts. And we cease to appreciate and do not understand and incorporate the dynamics of the whole or the self. Because there are technologies, Maharishi's technologies of consciousness, to enliven self-referral dynamics in brain and awareness. And so instead of only being registered and restricted to the surface of life, the fragmented, piecemeal value of object referral, we have Maharishi's beautiful technologies given to us by Gurdev of self-referral mechanics. And from this we see that that value of Atma, that collapses constantly in brain physiology. And as it collapses in brain physiology, we're going to see that it's also going to collapse in human awareness, because the brain is that reflector of all possibilities of consciousness. It's nothing more than a loop coming and going, the dynamics of collapse and expansion, the flow of the constitution of the universe. We have this picture of the constitution of the universe. It has that backwards and forward motion. It is seen on all levels, Anoraniyan, the smallest, to Mahatamayan, the largest. It is that flow of to Ma. It is displayed in all levels of human physiology, as described by His Majesty Maharaja Nadaramji. It is seen throughout the brain in all its levels. And we will see it in the EEG as it supports different levels of consciousness. And in the unified field, as it flows into relative structures and supports it, we have different levels of invincibility. But invincibility is really only offered at the source, at the level of the constitution of the universe. Because diversity is too fragmented in most people's awareness. We need a unity of awareness and unity of brain functioning. We want to exchange object referral for self-referral. We want to enliven and enrich object referral experience of daily life through that deep value of invincibility structured only at the unified field level. This is pure self-referral functioning. This is the functioning of the nature of human physiology working with the constitution of the universe. What I'd like to do is to go to our first clip here, and to do that, I'm going to just quickly turn this screen on, and we can now go back to the slate and see that indeed here is a screen showing the transition as an individual begins the practice of transcendental meditation. In the middle, the two lines in the middle are EEGs from the left and right side of the front of the brain, and the bottom is coherence. At the bottom, 0 to the top, maximum. And you can see, as we've just been talking along here, that the individual's brain has gone through a transition. You can see the left-hand side of the screen goes up and down at the bottom, for example. The coherence fluctuates between minimum and maximum. But right in the middle of the screen that you're watching, you can see that EEG in the middle tracings becomes quite enlarged. And you can see the coherence in the bottom graph goes very, very high, remarkably high levels of consistently continuous EEG coherence, indicating a very great state of coherence in the physiology. And in this, then, we want to describe why this is of significance and how we can understand it working. And as we go back to our screens, then, we can see the principle of transcending, in which the mind, like an ocean, thoughts bubble up from transcendental consciousness, the self or Atma, and the mind spontaneously refines to deeper and more refined and abstract levels of the mantra as the mind settles down. And what before was unconscious and not available becomes conscious now. The brain is still working as it worked before, but now it's becoming more and more integrated, more and more coherent, and eventually transcending the finest level of mental activity to experience Atma, the constitution of the universe. This is that process of looping. We experience the mantra, and then we experience it at a finer level, and at a finer level, and a finer level, a very fine level, and then finally, the self-referral mechanics of the self knowing itself. This is the direct experience of Atma, which is memory. And Atma moving, Ayam Atma Brahm, Atma with the full memory of Ved and Vishwa within, that is Brahm. And this is found in human physiology and brain mechanics. This is a graphic of the surface of the human brain. That's the bottom of the brain. You're looking at the front now, over the top. This is now the back of the brain, again to the front. This is the cortex. This is where we construct our reality. This is where we reflect the memory of all possibilities. This machinery of the human brain is a reflector of total knowledge, a reflector of all possibilities. And through brain activity, we structure a seat of consciousness. And as brain activity changes, so does our consciousness change. The brain, as you can see with these cells here and these little flashing impulses of electricity, the brain is innumerable waves of electrical potential. It's a sea of electrical waves, innumerable fluctuating cycles of electrical activity. This is a finite brain, an active brain like Kriya Shakti, supported by the silence of Atman, Gyan Shakti. And we can see that for every level, gross to subtle, from the flowing of the blood to the metabolism to synaptic to quantum mechanical, all the way to the unified field functioning in the brain, that at every level of brain functioning, there's a corresponding support of that level of subjective experience. So for every level of brain functioning, there is a corresponding level of subjective experience. And in our first area we'd like to investigate then in terms of EEG functioning, we want to talk about loops, the togetherness of silence and dynamism. In the brain, we know this to be related to the functioning of glial cells and neuronal cells, and the integration of Rishi, Devata, Chundas as they create brain waves. So in this first area, we're going to talk about the loops in terms of local and global coherence. But let's talk first about the basic mechanics before we get to the EEG. The basic mechanics are that one impulse of awareness or consciousness interacts with another impulse of awareness or consciousness, or of matter. And there's this cyclic feedback phenomena, a coming and going, an expanding and contracting, a circular motion.